Hello there, BookTube. It's time for a December wrap-up.
Go the long way round. 2 bottle whiskey fall away.
I read a total of 17 books in December, which I think is kind of a lot, given that the holidays happened. But you know what? I found myself listening to audiobooks while I was wrapping presents. Because, wrapping presents is kind of a mindless sort of thing to be doing. And, I grab any opportunity I can to listen. So, 17 books. One was a novella. Six of those were audiobooks, and the rest were either print books or ebooks. So I'll just run down what they are and tell you what I thought. First, I read the Starcrossed series by Josephine Angelini. The first book in that series is Starcrossed. I listened to it on audio, and it was narrated by Devin Sorvari. I gave it 5 stars. The second book in that series is Dreamless. I read that in print because it's not available on audio, and I gave it 4 stars. The last book in the series is Goddess. I also read that one in print because, again, it's not available on audio, and I gave it 4 stars. Next up, I read Pawn by Aimee Carter. I listened to this on audio, and it was narrated by Maas Isaac. I could not get over how much she sounded like Gates McFadden from Star Trek The Next Generation. Gates McFadden plays Dr. Crusher, and I would be listening and I would think, I know that voice. Where do I know that voice? And I finally figured it out. It bugged me for the longest time. I gave Pawn 3 stars. I listened to More Than This by Patrick Ness. That was narrated on audio by Nick Podell. Nick Podell has done all of Patrick Ness's books on audio. He's so good. And I gave that 4 stars. Next up, I had the absolute pleasure of listening to Fangirl by Rowell. That was narrated by Rebecca Lohman, and she's done all of Rowell's audiobooks. I gave that one 5 stars. I read Starters by Lissa Price. I actually read this book even though I just found out that it's available on audio. I gave it 3 stars, but I'm going to listen to it again and see if I like it any better. I read Dash and Lily's Book of Dares for a kind of lighthearted Christmas read. That was narrated on audio by Ryan Gazelle and Tara Sands from 2 points of view. Ryan Gazelle was Dash and Tara Sands was Lily. I only gave that one 3 stars. Then I read Phoenix by Elizabeth Richards. This is the second book in the Black City series, and I gave it 4 stars. Then I read a children's book. It was a quick read. It took me about an hour. The Miraculous Journey of Edward Tulane by DiCamillo. I gave it 5 stars. I have this book in print somewhere. I can't find it, but I do have it. I listened to Throne of Glass by Sarah J. Maas. That was narrated on audio by Elizabeth Evans, and I gave it 5 stars. In November, I read the ebook Ashfall by Mike Mullin. So in December, I followed that up with the second book in the series called Ashen Winter. Also read it as an ebook, and I gave that 5 stars. I read Wait for You by Jay Lynn, who is another name for Jennifer Armentrout. I read that as an ebook, and I gave it 4 stars. In November, I started a series, the Hourglass Door series by Lissa Mangum. So in December, I followed that up with 2 books in print, which I got from the library and have since returned. Those are The Golden Spiral and The Forgotten Locket. The Golden Spiral I gave 4 stars, and The Forgotten Locket I gave 3 stars. I read a novella that I had pre-ordered, kind of showed up in my email box, and I was so happy. It's called Fracture Me. And it is book 2.5 in the Shatter Me series by Tahereh Mafi, and I really loved it. It is from Adam's point of view, and I gave it 5 stars. And lastly, I read many of the stories, all but just a couple of the stories, in the Best American Short Stories compilation as edited by Tom Perotta. My number 4 daughter is in college as a creative writing major, and she had an assignment to do where she had to go back and kind of review several short stories that they had talked about in class. Well, she hadn't technically read them all. She had skimmed them all. But she wanted kind of a refresher, so she said, "Hey, Mom, you love to read, and you're pretty good at spitting back a synopsis, so could you read a couple of these, maybe?" And so I said, "Sure." Well, you know what happened. I got on a roll, and I ended up reading all of them, except for maybe 2 or 3. I read all of them that she needed to read, and then I thought another one was on the list, and so I read it, so it was kind of a bonus. And I gave that 4 stars. Overall, the kind of average of each story was 4 stars. And they were mostly contemporaries, all thoroughly enjoyable. Now, I don't have a TBR for January, really. I could put some books on a list, but, you know, I just ignore it and read whatever I wanted anyway. Right now, I'm reading a book called Tandem by Anna Jarzab, and it's really good. I really enjoy it. It's about alternate realities and kidnapping and political intrigue, and it's just got a lot of great stuff going on. I will tell you that there are several books being released in January that I really want to read, and a great website for that is yalit.com. They list, actually they do nothing but list release dates for new books. So of the ones that are being released in January, I really want to read Independent Study by Joelle Charbonneau. That's the 2nd book in the Testing series, and I loved the Testing, so I am really looking forward to that. It gets released on audio on January the 7th, and it says that the release date is January 7th, but I saw it in Barnes & Noble the other day in hardback, so yeah, maybe it got released early. I'm not sure, but I'm really looking forward to that on audio. I also want to read in January Altered by Jennifer Rush, because the sequel's coming out, the book 2 in the series, which is called Erased, so I'm looking forward to that. I've heard great things about Sarah B. Larson's Defy, which is coming out on the 7th of January, so I really want to get to that. Book 2 in the Starters series is Enders by Lissa Price. I just read Starters, so I think I want to pick up Enders, and that's being released on the 7th of January. Fugitive X by Greg Rosenblum looks really interesting, so I may pick that up. That's being released again on the 7th of January. I'm really looking forward to the last book in the Everneath series by Brody Ashton, which is Ever True, and that's being released on the 21st of January. The last book in the Under the Never Sky series by Veronica Rossi is being released on the 28th of January, and that is Into the Still Blue. So got to find out what happened with Perry and the whole gang. And lastly, The Unbound by Victoria Schwab, which is the 2nd book in the Archived series. Really looking forward to that one because I loved the Archived, and that's being released on the 28th of January. So that's it for December and potential books for January. Again, if you want to know what books are being released in January, go to yalit.com because it's a great resource. And that's it for now for me. So I will see you next time, and thank you so much for watching.
When I'm gone, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone. You're gonna miss me by my hair. You're gonna miss me everywhere. Oh, you're gonna miss me when I'm gone.
Knew it. I knew I had it. I just thought it was bigger.